So it's not going to be an easy task to overcome the dark night of silence that surrounds this issue. The threats that go to individuals who were eyewitnesses, who did see things, and who are afraid of the loss of their pensions, or even their lives, or the lives of their families. So it's not going to be an easy struggle, and I just simply applaud again all of you who continue it and are willing to continue to wage the struggle. Now here today, we're going to hear the work of, critical work of 3 people, and we're going to look at it when they finish speaking in terms of what could be presented, actually could be presented possibly in a court of law, so that if one takes the combined works of research and scholarship of these people to a prosecutor, to a district attorney, one could argue convincingly that, look, this is hard evidence. This would be admissible for a grand jury. And we're going to take that kind of legalistic look. Admittedly, it'll be in summary fashion, but we're going to take that kind of legalistic look at some of the work to see what actually has gone on and what could be brought there. I believe at some point in time, with an adequate record that's compiled, and this may have to be done through a civil action that, in my view, is a very carefully planned civil action, not the one that happened in Washington that my dear friends of Motley Rice brought, but another very carefully studied civil action. And so that there is a record under oath that has the credibility that contains the work of these people. And that's what I think we'll have to do. When that is done, and that will be done eventually, it's a question always of money in these kinds of cases. When that is done, I find it hard to believe that there will not be available in some corner of this republic some prosecutor, some local district attorney from northern Vermont or western New Hampshire or somewhere like that who will say, I'm going to run with this. I've had victims in my jurisdiction. I have families who live here who have lost family members, and I'm convinced, and I'm going to run with this. And it will only take, in my view, one such prosecutor with that kind of courage, and frankly, I think ultimately we're going to find him. But we have to stay the course until then. Well, that's what I'm asking you all to do. So let's keep that in mind. With that in mind, let me begin this list of witnesses with Graeme MacQueen. Graeme is going to be discussing the foreknowledge of the World Trade Center's collapse, the challenge of the official hypothesis, which, as you know, was a 47-story building, that steel-structured building that was felled by fire. I read Judge Heseltine's comment on that. It was incredible, but nevertheless, they continually try to assert what is convenient. Graeme received his PhD in comparative religion from Harvard University, taught in the religious studies program in the department at McMaster University in Canada for 30 years. In 1989, he became the founding director of the Center for Peace Studies at McMaster, after which he helped develop the BA program in Peace Studies and co-directed peace-building projects in Sri Lanka, Gaza, Croatia, and Afghanistan. He has also contributed to the development of the Women's Peace Brigade in North India, active now in several states, and was involved for some years in the Third Option, a peace initiative for Afghanistan. He has published numerous peer-reviewed articles, book chapters, as well as 4 books. He took early retirement from McMaster University to devote his energy to peace and justice work. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Graeme MacQueen.
thanks to the organizers for inviting me to join this fascinating day's activities. It's a great honor to share the podium with so many wonderful speakers and individuals. Also an honor to be introduced by William Pepper. As I said to Kevin the other day, this is the world turned upside down, since of course I should be introducing him. My topic today is foreknowledge of World Trade Center 7's collapse, but I was asked to say a couple of words first about the building in general. I think most of you know this, but it won't hurt to go through it. I won't spend too much time, just to locate you in the right spot. We are, after all, talking about a specific building today and the collapse of that building. It is an important collapse, not just to architects and engineers. In terms of political history, I would say this is probably one of the most important building collapses in modern history. Certainly worth our day's study. So here's where it's located. This picture is taken obviously from the air and somewhat to the south. The tall building closest to you is World Trade 2, the South Tower. Then World Trade 1, the North Tower with the big aerial on top. And then across Vesey Street is our building, World Trade 7. It was about 350 feet from the north side of the North Tower. Here's a shot from the north, South Tower in the distance, then the North Tower, and then our building, World Trade 7. 7 was 47 stories high, as you've heard, 650 feet. A big building by the standards of most of us from the towns and cities that most of us come from. Each floor had about the same area as a football field, so it's a large building. This building was not struck by a plane. It did suffer some damage when the North Tower came down. Here you see this enormous steel structure called the North Tower, which has been reduced to rapidly moving cloud of pulverized material, and 7 is standing in the midst of it. It also suffered fires on the day, which you can see here. And just before 5:21 in the afternoon, there was a little tremor of the earth, which registered as a seismic signal, and 10 seconds later, the building came down. And you've seen it before, this collapse. You'll probably see it many times today, but it's definitely worth looking at more than once. "10 seconds after the earth shook." Now, it took the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is an agency of the U.S. Department of Commerce, quite a few years to come up with its final report, but finally in 2008, they came up with their final report on the collapse of this building. Insofar as we can talk about an official story about the collapse of World Trade 7, it would be the story found in this report. So you'll find us, the three speakers this afternoon, all referring to this report. We'll call the National Institute of Standards and Technology NIST, because it's easier to say. And we'll be talking about this particular report when we refer to the NIST report. The gist, as William Pepper just said, the gist of their conclusion is that this building came down in the way that you just observed because of office fires. Many, many people reject that explanation, including all the speakers today. That is, all the speakers certainly this afternoon. Many of us think that this building came down because it was intentionally and skillfully brought down on 9/11. In other words, it was subjected to controlled demolition. I imagine most of you here have heard this claim before. Some of you may still find it outrageous. The implications of it, if we're right, are of course huge. We would then have to say, why have we all been lied to for 9.5 years? We would have to ask, what else may have gone on that day that we don't know about? How about those other buildings that collapsed? What about 9/11 as a whole? What about the global war on terror? Now, we're not going to explore those wide, important questions today. We're going to focus on Building 7. But I did want to mention them to you, because that's the context in which we study this building, and that's why it's one of the most important building collapses in modern history. Now, that's my little intro to Building 7, and I now want to move into my specific topic. And to do that, I'm going to begin by showing you the way Building 7's collapse was dealt with by the BBC. If we can turn the sound up for this one, it's sometimes a bit quiet.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago, I was talking about the Salomon Brothers building collapsing. And indeed it has. Apparently that's only a few hundred yards away from where the World Trade Center towers were. And it seems that this was not a result of a new attack. It was because the building had been weakened during this morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about the Salomon Brothers building and its collapse?
Well, only really what you already know. Details are very, very sketchy. There's almost a sense downtown in New York, behind me, down by the World Trade Centers, of just an area completely closed off as the rescue workers try to do their job. But this isn't the first building that has suffered as a result. We know that part of the Marriott Hotel next to the World Trade Center also collapsed as a result of this huge amount of falling debris from 110 floors of the two twin towers of the World Trade Center. As you can see behind me, the Trade Center appears to be still.
We'll cut off Jane Stanley there. Jane Stanley talks for about 7 minutes altogether. After 7 minutes, her image breaks up, and the anchor says, "Unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley." In the meantime, however, we have those remarkable 7 minutes. Two things I want to note. First of all, the red arrow shows you the caption at the bottom, which confirms what she's saying. The 47-story Salomon Brothers building, that's another name for World Trade 7, close to the World Trade Center, has also collapsed. And of course, the second thing that's worth noting is that the building is standing behind her the entire time she's speaking. World Trade Center 7 has not collapsed, nor is it collapsing, nor will it collapse till over 20 minutes after its collapse was announced. Now, when this little video clip from the BBC was rediscovered and posted on the internet in 2007, it raised a lot of controversy. Firestorm of debate and dialogue, and the BBC received many letters of complaint and query, to which finally they felt an obligation to respond. So the head of news for BBC World said the following: "We're not part of a conspiracy. Nobody told us what to say or do on September the 11th. We didn't get told in advance that buildings were going to fall down. If we reported the building had collapsed before it had done so, it would have been an error. No more than that." Well, perhaps your laughter indicates that I don't need to analyze that too much more, but I will anyway, because that's what academics